So, before introducing our first speaker this evening, I would like to take a moment to extend a heartfelt thank you to the entire economic development team who are also joining us on the call. A special thank you goes out to our wonderful director, Denise Mincy Mills, and our executive director of operations, Ms. Jennifer Andreu. We truly appreciate your leadership and guidance. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker for the educational segment, Attorney Kimra Major Morris of Major Morris Law Firm.
Thank you.
Kimra Major Morris. Hi, Kimra.
Hi.
I'm going to read your beautiful bio. Impressive bio. Kimra is an AV-rated intellectual property attorney and a nationally published copyrights, trademarks, and publicity rights expert. She hosts the award-winning show Legal Connections and frequently speaks on intellectual property risk management. Kimra's extensive client base includes corporate leaders, athletes, and entertainment executives, all of whom she has helped protect their intellectual property legacies. She has provided training for companies like Microsoft, Meta, and Goldman Sachs. And her firm, Major Morris Law, is definitely a certified minority business enterprise. Proud of that. A Beyonce NAACP grant recipient, Kimra is recognized for her advocacy in underserved communities. Before law, she worked as an HBO video editor and taught, at Full Sail University. So let's welcome Kimra. Please join us. Please join us in welcoming you to tell us all about it. So that way, our folks here, we have thus far over 100 people in this call. They would like to hear what you have to say, and go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Yes.
Thank you so
Yes.
much for having
Mhm.
me. It's such an honor to be here, and I truly appreciate Broward County Public Schools and the Economic Development Department and everyone who had a part in organizing this event. I am excited because this is a great passion of mine to educate other business leaders. And the title of this particular presentation is Proactive Risk Management, and to provide you with essential strategies for safeguarding your business success. I'm going to, hopefully I can navigate this. Okay, so my disclaimer, nothing in this presentation is intended as legal advice. This presentation is merely informational and is not a substitute for hiring an attorney to advise you on your specific situation. Please consult an attorney before making legal decisions based on the information in this presentation. I am, as Jasmine said, I am an AV-rated attorney, and I frequently provide consulting and advisory services to not only small business owners, but to leadership development teams looking to understand what the risks are, especially in this digital world we live in. So those are just a few of the highlights and some of the places that I've been seen in. And the goal of this presentation today is to provide you with some deeper insights than what we're used to hearing about. So in business, we know you need to form your business, right? But before you form the business, you decide kind of how you want your structure to go. And so the entity type is important. And I know in the
Kimra,
panel
could you hold on
discussion,
1 second? I think someone
sure,
is actually need to mute themselves.
yes,
Okay, so sorry. My
that's okay.
apologies.
So the entity type is going to matter because if you are planning to hire others and for, of course, tax purposes, how you want to show up whether it's for-profit, not-for-profit, what kinds of opportunities you'd like to be eligible for. So this particular thing, I think a lot of people just start. LLC is the most popular because it's easy to form and it's easy to add members and remove members, and you don't have to deal with a board. Of course, your sole proprietorship is going to be your most expensive business structure because you're in the highest tax bracket. But this is something that you would discuss ideally with a CPA. Some business attorneys are happy to educate you on the pros and cons because they align with your goals as to which entity type you're going to select. The next big thing, of course, is your organizational agreements. Who you're going into business with matters not just for your potential success, but also for potential legal issues down the line. And so I like to mention that as an intellectual property attorney, one of the things that gets overlooked in the organizational agreements is the intellectual property. If you have a great name that you've decided on and you come to someone and you say, we would like to form this business and we want to call it this, and then you as collectively go and file trademarks and copyrights, what happens if you have a disagreement and one person leaves, but they have contributed to the protection of the trademark or the copyright? This is a sticky situation. We see this often, of course, with music groups. One band member leaves and then he or she is calling themselves the name of the group that they're no longer a part of. You think about this with business ownership, because just as we have personal identity theft, we have business identity theft. And sometimes it's former partners that are the culprits of this. So I want to just put these things just on your radar, because you want to mention these things in the organizational agreements. If it's your brainchild and then you bring on your best friend, and then all of a sudden everything is commingled, it is a marriage in many ways. The professional licenses, you want to go to the Department of Professional Business and Regulations, and I'm botching the name of it, but to find out what professional license is suitable for your particular industry. Lawyers are regulated by the Florida Bar Association, and so we have to have a license to practice law, as we are opening up a business at the same time. So compliance with independent contractors versus employees, those things matter, and you want to be thinking about not only what you can afford, but the ease in which you can work with people without jeopardizing perhaps intellectual property and other things that are valuable to the business. I'll give you an example. Years ago, I worked for a production company, and there was a stage manager who was always late. This was a live performance, and this person was always late. And the boss used the terminology that they were going to fire this person. And this person was an independent contractor. So you don't use words like fire, because think about if you were hiring someone to come clean your carpet. They're providing a service. And if you have independent contractors, we have to be careful for legal reasons to say we are terminating services as opposed to we're firing someone. Because if you're firing someone, then that suggests that they are an employee, perhaps eligible for benefits and paid time off and all these other things. So this nuanced language is really important when it comes to compliance. Bookkeeping and taxes, we saw how this played out during the pandemic when a lot of businesses who were not properly structured, could not show profit and loss sheets, et cetera, did not qualify for certain funding that was available. So not only for your compliance for certification, but just other business opportunities will be made available to those who are doing proper bookkeeping and reporting taxes, paying and reporting taxes. Business tax receipts, this is what we have to think about with zoning. If you have something that is dangerous for your neighbor, let's say you have a paint shop and you're working from home, this could be a problem, because if it exposes others who are in your nearby vicinity to the chemicals or other toxins. This is why these zoning laws exist, for the safety of the neighborhood, and also because the city or the government, whichever the county that you live in, has restrictions. We don't know what the land is doing for environmental purposes. We have to comply with these zoning laws. And of course, the annual reporting is something that we all do, just to make sure that our the state of Florida knows that you're still in business and that none of the information has changed, or if your officers or your mailing address or anything, you want to definitely keep up with this. Penalties are stiff if not. Other considerations for success. Your insurance. This is often something that we think of almost as an add-on that may not be absolutely necessary. Some of us are just making it from customer to customer, and you think that you can afford, especially for people who work by themselves. And this assumption that you can get away with little or no insurance is something to reconsider. What if you work from home and you have a flood? If you don't have flood insurance, also want to encourage you to not only have personal insurance for these things, but business insurance for these things. Of course, we see it in the news all the time with the hackers, and sometimes even today, the Microsoft Teams wasn't working earlier. I'm actually at another location because my entire internet from my home office was inoperable. But what if this was something where everyone was relying on my presentation and the insurance went down, and then I got sued for not being able to show up and present? Then I would need to have adequate insurance to cover the loss that other people have suffered. In law school, they teach us to think about the worst case scenario. Of course, in life, it's just the opposite. We're taught be positive, but for planning purposes, we do need to think about the worst case scenario. So professional liability insurance, even if for personal reasons, but if you store things for people, if you have a storage unit, if you are extra space storage, there's one in South Florida that just suffered a fire. What if they didn't have the professional liability insurance to be able to pay out for all the people? So think about yourself as a business owner and some of the worst case scenarios for the services that you're providing for others. Intellectual property enforcement, I touched on it just briefly, and we'll talk about it a little more in the presentation. But intellectual property enforcement is extremely important, but many of us don't think about intellectual property in our insurance policies. But the reason intellectual property enforcement is important is because it could sink a business if you don't have it. There is a potential business out there that, well, not a potential, it's an active business, but it was almost a client of mine that sells vitamin supplements, and they white label these supplements. So people have been getting sick from the supplements, and the business that white labels them is saying, we don't make them. We're not the manufacturer. We're not responsible for the ingredients here. All we're doing is making sure that the quality of the packaging is intact. But without this intellectual property insurance, they can't go after anyone who is copying the label that they put on. So you have other people who are having fraudulent products out there, and you have no way to enforce your rights to stand by the quality of your own business to stop the confusion in the marketplace. Very important. Cyber insurance, same thing. What if you're accepting payments and your system gets hacked, and we see this a lot with the larger companies, but if you're a smaller business and someone's information that you were responsible for safeguarding is exposed because you didn't invest in proper cyber security, then that is an issue where you would want to have cyber insurance for your business. And of course, this is familiar with the workers' comp and the employee classification. Just the example I was telling you about, that person that was fired using that language, but should have been terminated as a service provider, sued the company and said, I was treated as if I were an employee and I'm an independent contractor. And they sued and they were able to get back pay, vacation pay, all of that from the employer's insurance policy. So this is something that, again, we don't often think about these things, but I hope this presentation will help to make you a little more aware of some of the scenarios that could prevent us from being as successful as we might be. Intellectual property is my special practice area. It is a specialized practice area. And these are some things that we kind of know a little bit about, but I just want to touch on each one to give you a little more clarity. Copyrights, when you think about copyrights, this is the creative content that in your business. It could be your website, it could be your newsletter, it could be social media posts. This is creative content, and we would send these to the Copyright Office, to the U.S. Copyright for registration for particular benefits that we'll go over. Trademarks, the easy way to think about trademarks is we're trading products or services under a particular brand identity. So if you are Broward County School District, you are a service provider. So instead of calling it a trademark, we technically would refer to Broward County School District as a service provider. So instead of TM, we would use the SM symbol. Trade secrets are the secret sauce of the business, and you don't register them, you just keep them a secret. For years, and Coca-Cola and KFC have had recipes, and only people who work there who have had the opportunity and signed, of course, various agreements for confidentiality know the process and the recipes, but this is giving them a competitive edge. So this is why it's called a trade secret. Although you may not have a restaurant, it could be your mailing list. It could be your contacts. They say your net worth is your net work is your net worth. Your contacts are extremely valuable in some industries. The non-competes that are out there for companies like Microsoft and Apple is because they don't want their competitors to know their trade secrets, and their employees have to sign various documents to make sure that those are protected. The patents, I'm sorry, let me go back because I clicked too fast. Patents are inventions. You might have a better way of designing a microphone. A microphone is not your invention, but if you improve the design, that's referred to as a design patent. But anything that is brand new in innovation that has a function is a patent. One example is a microphone. Again, you could draw a picture of a microphone, and because it's artwork, that's copyrightable content. But the actual microphone has a function, and that's what makes it something that would be eligible for patent protection. These things are all used in business. You go one by one. What's a company that got rich off of copyrights? You could say the music, basically the music industry, or even Canva. Canva has copyrightable content. They have backgrounds, and they have artwork that we can use for our presentations. So copyrights have made Canva rich. Trademarks, I would say that Nike, lots of people, Michael Jordan, these collaborations, the brand is known for something. And if you can build up your brand and the integrity of it all, then that can make your company very wealthy. Trade secrets, we talked about the secret sauce with mailing lists or whatever you're going to do that will give your business an advantage. And finally, the patents. Innovation, of course, will take us to the next level. The creators of AI tools, for example. All right, so here are some common copyrights in business, and this is for your strategy, because as you are starting a business, you want to think about what it is you're bringing to the marketplace. Is it content? Is it any of these items? If so, you want to put it on your checklist to make sure you are moving toward doing a registration for your copyrights. So if you've created an app for your building, your business, that's something where the code would be eligible in some cases for copyright. If it's an invention, something never done before with code, then that's something that you might consider for a patent or might be eligible for patent protection. Your company's photos, Getty Images is notorious for suing people for the use of their photos. And this is also something that you want to consider as you conduct yourself in business. I have a course for teachers, for example, copyright law for educators, because there's all kinds of third-party content that teachers are using in the classroom, and just to make sure that they're aware of the guidelines. So not only do you want to be proactive in enforcing your rights as a creative content owner, but you also want to be knowledgeable about risk management as the person that's utilizing intellectual property that belongs to others. Here's some of the ways that you're in your business strategy. You could think about making money off of your content, licensing your content. I have clients who have created digital courses. Their courses appear on different websites, and they are paid a licensing fee, and they are paid for that. Doing something one time, they're paid over and over and over again for the use of it. Blogs, images, designs. As I said, you could sell software, these different things, again, licenses. If you use Adobe, or if in your school system you're using Canvas or any other learning management system, you have a license to use that platform. I will say that it is your responsibility to read the rules. A lot of these platforms now, in the terms and conditions, say that you are giving permission for them to train AI on your content. So again, going back to the teacher example, if the teacher is uploading a student's content and the fine print says that that content is that the teacher is authorized to upload it and belongs to the student, then that's a risk management thing. But the same thing would apply in your work. If you are uploading content that belongs to others and the platform itself is being used to train AI tools, then that's something that you should be aware of. Public performance fees. Speaking can be considered a public performance, playing music across in your elevator, if you're a person who provides sound to different events, because the sound is being played for an audience, that's considered a public performance. We briefly touched on trademark law, but I do want to spend time on this because of all of the areas of intellectual property, this is the one that applies to businesses the most. Every business has a trademark. Every business, because one thing that you may not realize is that when you go to Sunbiz is a directory of businesses that have a license, and this is a very important point. They are a directory of businesses operated by the Division of Corporation that have a license to practice using that name in the state of Florida. When you register your business with Sunbiz, you don't have a trademark for it. That means, because a trademark under federal law, these are federal laws, is the exclusive right. I'm sorry, let me read this again. The exclusive right to use your brand identity, which could be your name, your logo, your slogan, with specific goods and services. So I'll give you one example of what can happen with a Sunbiz search. Let's say you decide on your business name and you've never heard of anyone with this name, or you have a different spelling for your name, even though you might have heard something like it before. The risks for that are that you have not cleared the title. I know many of you are homeowners, and when you bought your home, you cleared the title to your property. Apply that same approach to a business name, because when you register a business on Sunbiz, the title that's not a clear title. What you've done is made sure that there's no other business in the state of Florida that has that name, but what about all the other states? So you may want to visit the United States Patent Trademark Office, that's uspto.gov, to do even a preliminary search to find out if anyone has this name. I will warn you that the preliminary search is not a comprehensive search. Because let's say you want to start a computer company and you want to call it Apples and Oranges, and you don't see anything with that name, and you go and you start your business, you're going to get a cease and desist notice from Apple Inc. because Apples and Oranges could be confused as an affiliate of Apple Inc. So the trademark search and clearing the title to your business name is extremely important, because imagine launching a business, you have your website, you have your business cards, you have all your social media pages up, and you get a cease and desist notice. This has happened to many of my clients where they get the cease and desist notice and they have to relaunch. One client had a parking lot near the airport. They had the signage outside, they had the vehicles with all of the wrap and everything for their marketing, and they had to start all over again because the name was something they didn't properly vet. They just made sure it wasn't taken on Sundays and they ran with that. But in fact, there was a federal trademark for it. Here are things that are trademarkable, and I'll give you an example of each as we go. A word is trademarkable, and what we mean by trademarkable doesn't mean you own the word. It means you own the word in association with certain things. So for example, Google. Google is actually a word that has something to do with computer bits. But the owner of Google knows, or the owners of that word have it, and the phrase is in association with internet searches, etc. Okay, so they own the word, but you have to say in association with. So think about your business. What word can you own in association with? And if it's already taken in association with similar products or services, that is the definition of trademark infringement. Names. Walmart is a name, all right? Hang on, let me go back. That's somebody's last name. But they don't own the name outright. They own it in association with, what do we call these? Grocery stores or superstores. Symbols. Think about the swoosh sign with Nike. So they own that in association with athletic apparel. It happens, designs. This is a tricky one in the fashion industry because sometimes designs overlap in fashion. But if you think about, for example, the Louis Vuitton logo, that's one. But in apparel, that one gets a little harder to protect. Colors. Verizon actually owns this color pink in association with mobile telephone services. Think about the NBC chime for sounds. And I'm going through these because as a business owner, you can think about which one of these you want to really emphasize, because your business, your trademark is like your personal identity as an individual. So this is your business identity, or any combination of these things. Really important. Advent Health is huge. And when we think about Advent Health, I guess we all have a different impression, but they want their brand to stand for, a caring team and all these things. Think about what your message is that you intend to show with your business name, i.e. trademark. Here are some of the ways people make money with their trademarks. Franchising is one way. Of course, you think about Subway and how they have the logo's never going to change with a franchise. This is a copy paste situation. Everybody who opens up a new company gets trained and told that you can never change the font, you can never change these colors. It's all about uniformity, but you have to establish the policies and procedures in the first place in order to expand in that way. But it all starts with a strong trademark. Product placement. If you sell apparel, one way that you can make trademarks is making connections with people who shoot movies, because maybe you want somebody to wear your t-shirt in the movie, and you're going to pay them a fee to advertise your particular brand. And at the same time, they're saving money because now maybe you've provided t-shirts for the whole team. Licensing, that's another way. We talked about, think about the courses. Coursera, for example. Coursera is a service mark because they're providing those services by having courses available to you if you want to train in any particular industry. But those courses are being licensed by whoever has written the courses. Collateral. Now, this is something that you may not know. If you have a trademark and your brand is strong enough, we'll go back to the Advent Health example. If Advent Health was in need of money all of a sudden, Advent Health could use its trademark as collateral to get a business loan because the trademark is strong and means something in the marketplace. And the bank would actually own the trademark until the loan is paid back. And then that title to the trademark would get transferred back to the company. These are ways that we can leverage intellectual property assets for more successful businesses. And of course, when you sell your business, if you have a trademark, it adds value to the overall company, to the bottom line. And that's another way that it can help you with your strategy. And then co-branding deals. Think about Barnes and Noble and being a bookstore and they have a Starbucks inside. As a business owner, think about if you co-brand with another company, how will that help you to reach a whole different set of customers? Barnes and Noble's a bookstore, and people used to go there and just read books. There was no coffee shop in there, and now people are enjoying Starbucks and in there, and people who may just be going for the Starbucks now all of a sudden like Barnes and Noble. So that's just an example of a business coming together with another. Okay. What are the ways that intellectual property is relevant in business? We're building your brand strength. Think about the fact that you're protecting this particular asset, because that's what it is. And going back to the Advent Health, they have built a strong brand in the name, so it represents integrity. Partnership agreements. We talked about collaborations with others. If you're starting your business with a friend or a colleague, you definitely need to spend some time thinking about what's the name of this company, what happens if one of us leaves, is this going to be marital property, or business property? Will I get to keep it even though it was my idea? How is that outlined in your partnership agreement? And we talked about the insurance for intellectual property and whether you're going to be able to, because some people get these registrations, a copyright registration, a trademark registration, and then when it's time for them to sue someone, they don't have the money to do it. If your intellectual property is important enough to the success of your business, if your business name, in other words, means something in the marketplace, if your content means something in the marketplace, then think about insurance for that, so that if you have to sue somebody, then you have a policy to be able to enforce your rights. Grants. There are data-driven decisions in funding. For example, if you decided that you want to start a nonprofit company and call it Black Lives Matter, you're not going to get a grant for that because that already exists. And so another thing that some people do is they create programs and then they find nonprofit organizations to house the programs. But if the program is already out there, if someone has already taken your idea, then you may not get a grant for it because it's been already done before. So if you have these ideas that are not common, they're protectable. Investors. I want to touch on this briefly. Do your due diligence, because intellectual property records are public. If you have not protected your business name, we can see you. We can go to uspto.gov and we can see that you have not handled the simple things. We can go to copyright.gov and see that your idea for a program is not protected. And if I'm an investor, I'm going to look at that the same way a bank would look at you if you wanted a mortgage. They're going to say, you need homeowners insurance. Think of it this way. Intellectual property registrations are very similar to homeowners insurance, because if you want investors to pay into your business and you haven't secured the asset that they're investing in, it might not be a great strategy to invest in your business if you haven't done that due diligence, and it's public record. Internal procedures. You want to have the right contracts with your independent contractors. Let's say you need a logo done, you need some company photos done, you hire the photographer. You probably didn't know that the photographer owns those pictures. Even though you might have paid the photographer $500, under copyright law, the person who captures the content is the owner. So as a business owner, think about what agreements you have with people and what it is you're actually acquiring when you have these interactions. I could spend a lot of time on this particular thing. You hire photographers, you hire different people to do different things, and you want to make sure that you own the content or the name of the project or the program you've created. Okay, state versus federal. Let me see how I'm doing on time. Got a couple more minutes. You can have a state trademark. Let's say if you have a food truck, because federal, remember I told you trademarks are federal. I think everyone in business that has the intention to grow the business should have a federal trademark. Why? Because we're all online. We all have websites. We all have social media pages, or most of us anyway. And if you see a copycat online, they will ignore you if you don't have a trademark registration. They will not take down the copycats page. So even though you can get a state trademark that protects you within the boundaries of Florida, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me if you have a website and you can't enforce your rights against the person who's outside of Florida. But you do get geographic protections. I could see it maybe if you had a food truck or maybe a beauty salon where the traffic coming to you is just local. And even though you have a website, it's more for marketing purposes for the local people. One benefit in the federal trademarks is Customs and Border Patrol protection. If you have a trademark registration, the Customs and Border Patrol will, you share it with them and they'll help prevent the fraudulent products from coming into the country. Of course, we talked about online enforcement. You report it to Facebook, Instagram, any of these platforms, and you can show a trademark registration. They will take it down versus the person that does not have a registration, then they're just going to be ignored. There are maintenance requirements, and I want to just touch on this briefly. When you have the trademark maintenance requirements, after you get the registration, what I'm saying is after you get it in 5 years, you do report to the trademark office to let them know you're still using it, because they don't want, almost like cyber squatting, they don't want registrations that are no longer active on the trademark office register. So there are smaller fees to maintain the mark after you have it registered, but it is your responsibility to enforce your rights. Trade secrets, we touched on this with they're giving you your company an economic advantage. My background is in the music and media industries. And so I would say that my contact list is very valuable. To be able to pick up the phone and call some of the people we might see on television is an advantage. So if my mailing list or telephone list was out there in the public, then I can't say that it would put me at a disadvantage, because this is about relationships. But if you have a mailing list of, let's say, new business owners, people who would automatically need your service, they want your website services, you have that's a pretty powerful list. If you have all the list of all the people who just registered businesses last week, then I would say that puts you at a certain advantage depending on what your services are. I mentioned that trade secrets are not registerable. That's not something, there's no office that takes trade secrets, but you are responsible for keeping them a secret. We do that by non-disclosure agreements. And also, like if you have a computer that stores these secrets, then you would put password protections on the computer, double and triple the passwords, and make sure that your team is properly trained on that. Sorry, I did that by mistake. Your customer lists, your processes, your formulas, these are things that, again, give your team a competitive edge. And it's 6:42. I have a few minutes, I think, Jasmine, for more questions, if we can open it up for questions, because there are usually quite a few.
Oh, absolutely. There is a question, does it cost to report? I guess you're still using the name. I'm not too sure. Perhaps this is from David.
Does it cost to the maintenance, you mean, David?
Oops. Yes.
Okay.
After the
So,
5 years, do you have to pay or
yes.
re-up?
Well, okay, so that's a great question because if you have a Florida trademark, that trademark is only going to be good for 5 years. I'm glad you asked that. If you have a federal trademark, that trademark is good for as long as you renew it and keep up the maintenance. So I'll give you an example. Right now, if you have a federal trademark, not including lawyers' fees, the filing fee, let's say you were to do it yourself, you would be paying $250 per class. That means per category. So if you sell apparel, you're going to be paying the legal fee plus the $250 for the filing fee. If you have apparel and you sell office chairs, that's going to be another $250 because that's another category of products that you're selling. So your overall fee for a class for a trademark in the beginning, if you on your initial filing, would be the two classes, which is $500 plus your legal service fee. Now, when 5 years passes, right now they're increasing their fees in January, but right now the 5 year, sorry for that noise, I'm downtown, but right now the 5 year filing fee for maintenance is $225 per class. So you paid $250 for the initial filing. Now your 5 year fee is going to be $225 to basically check in and say, yes, I'm still using it. Then you have to do it again in 10 years, like in 5 years later on the 10th year. That fee is $525. And then it's every 10 years after that. But I really want people to start thinking about, if you haven't already, what is the cost of not doing it? Because if you don't do it, I see some of the most heartbreaking stories about people who have built things and then somebody else turns around and does the registration and they don't even know about it because they're not paying attention. So one thing I want to encourage you all to do, if you have a business name and you think it's unique, sign up for Google Alerts. You literally have to type in googlealerts.com and then set yourself up to get alerts every time somebody is using your particular business name. Because if you don't know about it, then you can't enforce it. And then your rights can be lost that way. But that's a great question, David.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Kimra. We really appreciate your share. There are a few questions from the participants. I'm going to go ahead with the first question.
Okay.
It's from Felicia Thomas Bass, and would a logo be trademarked as well as
Yes, that's a great question. So I like to use Disney as an example. Disney has, well, some of their trademarks have expired because copyrights. Trademarks don't expire. Copyrights can expire because you only have, and it's a long time. So to answer your question, yes, the things that are trademarkable are logos, business names, slogans. But some people and companies like Disney, for example, will layer their intellectual property protection. And if they have creative content, then they will do a copyright registration for it. And let's talk about the difference. The copyright registration, we'll use the Mickey Mouse. The copyright registration is protecting the artwork, no matter how it's used. So if I decide to put Mickey Mouse on a blazer, then that is a copyright infringement first because it's the artwork that I have duplicated without the permission of the copyright owner. It's also a trademark violation because Disney sells apparel. And if I put the mouse on my apparel, now this is a trademark infringement because that is the brand that they have associated with apparel. So yes, you can do both.
Thank you. Georgette Canton, then it said, hi, we have an ice cream company. Silver ice cream are made by us. What can I go by getting the company?
Uh-oh, it cut out. I heard ice cream.
I'll repeat that. Georgette Canton stated that he has an ice cream company and all of the ice creams, I guess, made by them. How do I go by getting the company trademarked?
Okay. I like this question because it's one that I get in various forms. Sometimes people have T-shirts that have different slogans on them, and they're trying to figure out, hey, do I have to do a registration for each one of these things, a copy? What do I do? So the umbrella is what you would focus on, the brand name itself, because we like Carvel's ice cream, but they're not doing or Ben and Jerry's, and so they're not doing a registration for each one of the flavors. Sometimes if it's as somebody's not on mute, but it's okay. But you want to do a trademark.
The differences.
Can you guys hear me? You want to do a trademark for
Yes.
okay, you want to do a trademark for the name of your company as an ice cream brand owner, because remember, that's the brand identity. So just as we think about Ben and Jerry's or Carvel or any of the, what are some of the others? The Stone, it's not coming to me, but yes, you would trademark the name of the brand. And then if the flavors are, if you have a unique recipe, for example, then that could be your trade secret. And if that's your trade secret, then some of the things that you would think about is every time you hire somebody, they sign a confidentiality agreement. You had password protect your areas where you're keeping the recipes and the particular formula to making your ice cream.
Thank you, Kimra. I'm
You're
sorry,
welcome.
we're over here trying to ensure that all questions are answered.
No, it's okay.
Third question we have from David Bird, and it's how long does a trademark last?
I love this question too, because many times when the trademark will last for as long as you maintain it. And I like to go back to the real estate example. If you own a house and you don't pay the taxes on it, then you're going to lose the house, right? So somebody's going to come and squat on it. But in trademark land, they will give you actually a 1-year courtesy notice. So on the 5th year, you'll get a notice that says,
I'm sorry.
courtesy notification that your trademark maintenance is due. And so let's say you got your trademark registration on January 1st of 2024. You're going to get a courtesy notification on January 1st, 2029, and they're going to give you 1 year to show proof. January 1st of 2030, you would have a whole year. They give you a whole year heads up. So if you don't have an attorney, this is what happens. You might move, you might change your email address. If you don't get this notification, then your trademark can go into abandonment and you have to start all over again. The process itself takes an entire year. In the meantime, while the trademark application is processing, you can use the TM symbol. Only the people with registered federal trademarks are allowed to use that circled R symbol. But as long as you're doing your maintenance, it's not going to expire. And these are things you put in your estate planning documents as well.
We have a question from someone raise their hand, so we're going to give them a chance to ask the question.
Is that Marsha?
Oh, yes. Hi.
Hi.
I'm not sure how. Okay, you answered the question, but I don't really understand it fully.
That's okay.
So I have a trademark. I
Mhm.
did get something in the mail. I reached out to my attorney. He said it seems like it probably, I have 2 trademarks for my business.
Mhm.
And I said, do I have to renew this? It's a federal trademark. And he said, it might just be scam mail. So I haven't updated anything. I haven't done anything. And it has been, I think, almost since 2020. And it came last year.
You know, it's public record, and I'm glad you asked because you can actually check it. Go to uspto.gov, put in your brand name or your serial number, your registration number, it'll come up. And once you pull up the detail on the record, you'll be able to see when the maintenance is due. Like I said, it's all public. So that's why when we talk about investors, they can see everything we are doing and not doing for those of them that are savvy. Yeah.
So you said it's USPTO.
US, yes, it stands for United States Patent and Trademark Office, uspto.gov. Mhm.
Thank you. And then they'll have a number if to call them if anything.
Yes, yes, they do.
Okay, thank you.
You're absolutely welcome. Let me know if I can help.
Can I ask my question now? I had my hand up for a little minute now.
Who's that? I can't see.
This is Gola.
Oh, I can hear you. Yes. Hi.
Hi. Okay. Just like the other young lady, you mentioned it, you stated it, but I'm just really not clear.
It's okay. Really,
So-
I get it. I'm sorry. This takes time, so nobody should feel like, they should have gotten it because none of this is common sense.
Exactly. But my, okay, I created an LLC. It's a service.
Okay.
The service is to assist new teachers in the school system to alleviate stress, to help them with, it's like coaching, like help them with their lesson plans, anything that will make it more comfortable for them. And the end goal is to combat teacher shortage. So I created a lesson plan
Okay.
that will be easy for them to follow. So what I want to know is, with that lesson plan that I created for almost 6 months, is that a should that be a copyright or trademark?
No, that's content. So that's a copyright.
Content, it's a copyright. Okay.
Yes. That's the easiest way to remember it. The C is for content. Copyright is for content. Yes.
Got it.
And then the name, remember think about the trademark as what's out there in the public representing you. That's the brand identity. So whether it's the name, the logo, the slogan, State Farm, like a good neighbor, those are trademarks.
Mm-hmm. But if my the name of my content is that to be
You might want, maybe. So think about a course, there are courses with titles. If you have a series, for example, that would be an appropriate time to protect the title. But single titles are not protectable. For example, if you have one book, that's not something you do a trademark for a book. That wouldn't be the category. If you have a book and it's a series, Chicken Soup for the Soul, great example. That's a trademark.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, Kimra, we have just about 3 minutes to go. There was one question from
Lumen?
Yes, you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for this presentation. My name is Lumen. I got my non-profit organization for the empowerment of women. You think that we need a trademark for this too?
It depends. And so then I want to mention too that everything is not protectable. If you have words that we commonly use in everyday language, sometimes it's hard to get a trademark for those, but it's worth looking into, particularly for nonprofit organizations. I go back to the Black Lives Matter example because there were multiple links out here to receiving donations, and many of them were the right organization. So if you have a trademark, it's recommended that you think of something for your nonprofit that is protectable so that your patrons, your donors can be protected by reducing the confusion in the marketplace.
Okay, but now we don't have any donation. This is the reason that I asked. In the future, if we will have some donation, if I need it.
Yes, I would recommend it, but again, you have to be the name search matters. In the beginning, you have to make sure that the name can actually be trademarked.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes it's not strong enough. Sometimes it's not unique enough, is what I'm saying. So you have to, the very first step in the process is what we call a comprehensive search. We'll call it similar to a title search.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Is that Marsha?
Yes, it's me again. I, I wanted to know, so I did look up the trademark. It is still registered and active. However, I do see another trademark similar to mine.
Well,
I mean, I wanted,
Marcia, it sounds like you need a consultation because I can't
um,
answer the
oh,
personalized questions on here. This is really just the general stuff, but I'd be happy to talk with you, but I can't go
got
into
it.
the individual records.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Ms.
Anyone
Okay,
else?
Mars,
we'll take the last question, and it's from it's a nonprofit needs to have a trademark. Someone's asking if a nonprofit needs a trademark, and that would be your last question.
Yes, I recommend, think of all the famous ones. Think about Red Cross. Imagine if you went to make a donation to Red Cross and it wasn't, it said something like Red Crosses. These are kind of the games that people play. But if you have a trademark like Red Cross does, and they can enforce their rights against the infringer, because the last thing you want is people donating to the wrong organization. So absolutely. And I welcome your questions, and I know the presentation is going out, but if you have questions, I'd be happy to be in touch with you at your convenience. I have a scheduler that you can look at on my.
yeah,
Okay.
do you have time for one more question?
Absolutely.
Yes. So I don't know if I didn't hear properly, but there was a young lady said that she sold ice cream. If you sell ice cream for different companies, you have to have uh,
A trademark for the name of the business, and I was saying that the different flavors, if there's something really catchy, like I know there's a makeup brand and they named everything after baked goods like cupcakes or whatever the flavors are, and they name the makeup colors after pastries. So if the ice cream flavors are different like that, then that's maybe a reason to do a trademark for a bit different flavors, but otherwise it would make sense just to do the trademark for the name of the company. And I'm looking at the time, and I just appreciate all these excellent questions. And Jasmine, thank you again. Thank you.
thank you.
All right, let me go ahead and transition over to me or back to me, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, hold on one second, please. Why am I? Okay. So definitely, I would like to say thank you to Kimra for your valuable insight and contribution to today's presentation. On behalf of the Economic Development Department, I express my sincere gratitude by presenting you with an electronic certificate of appreciation with a hard copy to follow by mail, though. Well done. We
Thank you
definitely
so much.
appreciate you. You did great in Fowlers. I know you're going to be joining us soon again. So you
Yeah.
guys will have another stab at her. So, because she's wonderful, but we have other great speakers to hear from. So I'll go ahead and move along. But thank you so much. That was really awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Look at all of the kudos to you. Well, our next, we'll move it along to the community presenter. So presenter segment, it's time for our law talk. And so right now, this panel will provide attendees with practical knowledge of managing and bid protest, construction liens, and vendor liabilities, along with actionable strategies for protecting intellectual property and meeting compliance in government contracts. So these insights will not only strengthen your business operations, but only prepare you to safeguard assets and build a robust partnership with the public sector. Please join me in welcoming the attorney Yolanda Cash Jackson. is Yolanda. I think I saw her earlier. Is she with us?
I am here.
Oh, okay. I don't see you. That's why.
Okay.
Let's see.
I'm here.
Okay, well, wonderful. Let me go ahead and introduce you. Yolanda Cash Jackson, a graduate of University of Florida law class of 1990, is a prominent lawyer, lobbyist in Florida's capital, known for her ability to influence state policy. She has built strong relationships with political leaders and drive impactful institutional initiatives. Throughout her career, Yolanda has been deeply committed to community involvement, serving on boards like the UF Foundation, in the Orange Bowl Committee, and as a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. Her reputation for integrity, dedication, and fairness has earned her long-standing clients and numerous accolades, including being named a most effective lawyer by the Daily Business Review. You guys are in for a treat tonight, these powerful people. As one of only 7 shareholders on Becker's management committee, she plays a key role in the firm's strategic growth. Her extensive experience positions her as a key resource for businesses navigating complex financial landscapes and securing growth opportunities. Welcome, Yolanda. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Our next panelist is attorney Michael Scott. Michael Scott is a skilled compliance officer with a strong legal and compliance management background. As compliance manager in the Economic Development and Diversity Compliance Department at Broward Schools, he ensures contracts adhere to supply diversity guidelines and school board policies. Previously, he managed the certification of compliance program at Miami-Dade County Public Schools. Michael holds a Juris Doctor from Florida A&M University College of Law and a degree in criminology from Florida State University. He is a member of the Florida Bar and holds certification as a certified compliance administrator and a master compliance administrator. Welcome, Michael. Nice having you participating in this panel.
Thank you, Jasmine.
You're welcome. Well, I don't know if it's worth it for me to read up on camera again, but I believe that we've had a lot of other people that joined us since then. So if you don't mind, I would like to go ahead and read your bio again, if that's okay. So Kimra Major Morris, an AV-rated intellectual property attorney and a nationally published copyrights, trademarks, and publicity rights expert. She hosts the award-winning show Legal Connections and frequently speaks on intellectual property risk management. Kimra's extensive client base includes corporate leaders, athletes, and entertainment executives, all of whom she has helped protect their intellectual property legacies. She has provided training for companies like Microsoft, Meta, and Goldman Sachs, and her firm, Major Morris Law, is a certified minority business enterprise. A Beyonce NAACP grant recipient, Kimra is recognized for her advocacy in underserved communities. Before law, she worked as an HBO video editor and taught at Full Sail University. Well, I want to say she's joining us one more, sharing additional insight with us. Welcome, Kimra. So let's go now and start asking questions. Let me go ahead and. Okay, so now I would like to begin with Yolanda. Hi, Yolanda.
Hi.
The first question I have for you. In doing business with the public sector, we often hear about bid protest and similar challenges. Could you share some of the common grounds for filing a bid protest? Additionally, what steps should a contractor or business owner follow to effectively challenge a bid decision?
Thank you. Thank you so much. So let me just say, I spend most of my time advocating on behalf of issues, businesses, organizations, and bid protest is actually where I started in this space. I would get calls and people would bid on things and didn't get it, and then they were perplexed. But one of the things that I learned is that they didn't know the rules. So I would say the first thing that you want to do as you apply in the public sector, particularly at school boards or those who have a lot of contracts that they go through, they have rules, and they also have workshops just like this. So the first thing I would do is acquaint myself with the rules before I apply for to an RFP or RFQ, whatever um, the opportunity is. So the first thing I would do is find out the rules. There will be rules that are associated with the organization itself, and then there'll be rules that are specifically written for the RFP. Now I can tell you a little family secret that a lot of these rules as to what is required for RFPs and RFQs are done behind the scenes long before they're actually published. And that's unfortunate because it does give an unfair advantage to insiders. So what do you do about that? If you know that you want to do business with the school district, or if you want to do business with the county, spend some time, invest some time in finding out the little stuff behind the scenes that are not written. And sometimes that's pretty intimidating, particularly if it's the first time that you're doing business with them. But I would encourage you to listen to some of if you don't want to go in person, listen to some of the commission meetings, listen to some of the school board meetings as they do procurement. But you must know going in what is required. Why is that important? On RFPs and things like that, and I don't want to be too basic, but sometimes basic is good. You really have to read each and every requirement before we even get to the big protest. If you haven't done that part, you won't be successful. So each and every requirement, I just did one myself. We do them all the time. The first thing we do is read the RFP. Read the RFP. Read the RFP. Have somebody else read the RFP, because we make little mistakes. The RFP says that you cannot subcontract with someone else, and then you can't subcontract with anyone else. And those are kinds of things that get you disqualified from the beginning. You can be the best, you can either have the best price, but if you don't comply with the rules, you will not be able to be successful. So, how do you comply with the rules? Generally, most of these RFPs have cones of silence. In other words, once you put in a bid, then the only people that you can talk to are the people who work for the organization. Now, let's just say I'm a lot friendlier to people that I know already, right? I like the I like and I want to date. I don't want an entanglement. So how do you do that? You start talking before the RFP comes out. So you can ask those questions that you're not quite sure, because you would have studied the rules, the overall rules, and then studied the RFP. And that is probably the most important part of being prepared for a bid protest. I've seen situations where I was uniquely qualified, and my score sucked. And it was something gone. And we would say, my grandmother would say, as she is a woman of Caribbean descent, some of the milk ain't clean. Sometimes you don't really know, but you know something's not quite right. So, but you won't know that if you don't pay attention. So what happens once you get all your stuff in and you get all of the compliance things, and we'll talk a little bit about compliance at the end, because there are some things that you have to do even after you're awarded the RFP that can affect your ability to file bid protests. And that is, you want to make sure that everything that you have to submit with the RFP is done. That's very, very important. Very, very important that that's done. And then once you submit the RFP, you have to make sure that you meet the deadline. If you have questions about the deadline, please, please reach out to those people that you've been talking to, because you don't have an entanglement, you have a relationship, and make sure that you understand what the deadlines are, because there are certain times that you can file your bid protest. There are days, and sometimes it's business days. Sometimes it includes weekends. Sometimes it doesn't include weekends. So you want to make sure that your bid protest is filed timely. It's filed timely. And sometimes, and this has happened to me, sometimes it's just not worth filing a bid protest. Sometimes there will be another RFP that comes out right after it, or they all bids get thrown out. But sometimes you just have to make sure that you're in compliance. So I'm going to stop there. But the first thing that you have to do in a bid protest, most people think, is let me call a lawyer if I don't get awarded. No, that is not the first step. That is not the first step. By the time you get rejected, it's almost too late. It's almost too late to put those things in place. Let me just mention one more thing that you can start doing ahead of time. Insurance. I think Attorney Morris mentioned insurance. You got to know what kind of insurance is required. Even for sometimes catering requires insurance. The worst thing in the world, I had a situation where I was trying to help a small business, had them to do a job for a client, didn't require RFP, but it would have allowed them to get, on the inside to be used. And they didn't have the proper insurance. And they prepared all the food and couldn't bring it up. Why? Because they didn't know the rules. So we want to make sure that we're in compliance. And I'll stop there with the first question and go on to the second. I might have talked about that one too long. That's because it's important that we comply with the rules.
Now that is true. Everything you said just very true. So I do thank you for setting up the stage with such valuable information. Michael.
Good evening, Jasmine.
Hi. Broward Schools encourages small business participation on contracts and agreements. Could you explain the legal obligations prime vendors have to comply with small business participation commitment? Additionally, what are the potential consequences if they fail to meet these requirements?
Yes, of course. Part of the mission of EDC is to provide economic opportunities and to grow the economic base of our business community in not only Broward County, but the Tri-County area. One of the mechanisms that we use to create those legal obligations for prime vendors are the use of affirmative procurement initiatives, or APIs. These APIs, they're set by our goal setting committee, which is chaired by our very own director, Mrs. Denise Minty Mills, who I know is on the call. Shout out to Ms. Minty Mills. These APIs, they provide the economic opportunities for those small businesses who may not have otherwise been afforded those opportunities. I just want to give you an example of an API. So for example, we may have a construction contract. The goal setting committee, they may have set a 20% mandatory subcontracting goal. What that does and what it ensures is 20% of the value of the contract, just say for a $100,000 contract, $20,000 goes to a small business. $20,000 goes to a small business. Without that API, that money probably doesn't go to a small business. So that prime vendor, when they sign that contract with the school board of Broward County, an agreement, the API is included in that agreement, and that creates essentially the four corners of the documents. In law, we look at the four corners, which essentially means we just look at the contract to see what should be complied with. And what that entails is we have the prime vendors sign what we call a statement of intent that we use in our office to ensure that what the subcontractors are doing isn't just minimal work. They have to ensure that there's a scope, that they're performing according to the scope. I'm sorry. And what that does is that creates that legal obligation for the API. Another obligation that the prime vendor has is to operate in good faith. What that means is they're just not listing a subcontractor just to get that bid. And when the contract begins, that they kick the subcontractor off. One of our duties in EDDC is to monitor the progress of the payments towards the subcontractors and also monitor that subcontractors are performing work. We've seen several situations where prime contractors, after the contract, they may give us a call or email and say, hey, I want to terminate this subcontractor or sub-vendor. One of the things that we do is we request documentation because as EDDC, we approve whether it's terminated or not. And if they don't have documentation or justification to remove that sub-vendor, we won't approve it because, once again, we are protecting the economic opportunities for our small business. And also, another obligation that the prime vendors have is they have to report how much they've received and how much they've paid the subcontractors. We do monitor the subcontractors' payments throughout the duration of the contract to ensure that they are getting the opportunity and the money to ensure that their growth. And some of the consequences that they may have if they're deemed non-compliance, there may be a suspension of the contract, withholding of funds, rescission of contract. They may be liquidated damages. And one mechanism that we also have is to essentially default them and disqualify them from being a vendor with Broward County schools for up to 2 years.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Michael. We appreciate your perspective on this important aspect of contracting. Now let's shift to our next panel. And Kimra, we will explore once more intellectual property. We often encourage businesses to scale by teaming up with other firms. Could you share some best practices for entrepreneurs to protect their business ideas and intellectual property when working with potential partners, investors, or collaborators?
Thank you for that question. And I've never met Yolanda, I don't believe, and Mike, it's so nice to share this platform with you both, and I look forward to speaking with you offline. That's a great question because as Yolanda and Michael were talking, I was thinking about something that has occurred to me before. I saw in the chat someone asking if they are required to have a trademark to participate, as a vendor. And I would say that it's best practices to answer your question. But also, if you think about it, it's very important not only for you to do your own due diligence for your own company, but if you were collaborating with someone whose intellectual property was not their own and they got sued, then the whole situation looks bad. And so you have to, I forgot what the comedian, it was Kevin Hart, was just saying, we don't do it as a unit. And so you have to look at who you're aligning yourself with and whether they in fact own the content that they're putting out there for their own organization, whether they own the brand name. But the best practice for collaborating is, of course, to have your secured intellectual property, whether that be your business name, if you have an idea that you have not scaled or is not widely known. Best practices, I always say, is to layer up, not only have a copyright registration for the content, if that's what it's going to be, or if you have a patent for it, but you also want to layer it with a confidentiality agreement. And that way, if something goes south, then you have a layer, then you have a breach of contract and a potential copyright infringement or trademark infringement, and you have 2 claims of action. So that's a good practice. But there is a framework that I like to encourage for businesses, and I call it the asset framework. And asset, the A is for awareness. Be aware of what intellectual property you're actually bringing to the table. You know, what is it? Is it the look of it? Is it the idea? Is it the methodology? What is it you're bringing? Then the first S is for strategy. Your security. How is that secured at all in the relationship? Then the second S is for strategy. You know, how are you going to leverage this opportunity to collaborate with somebody else to bring this project forward? And then enforcement. Are you in position, as Yolanda was saying, are you in position to enforce your rights? You know, if you don't have insurance and you can't participate in certain things, you can't participate in maybe the opportunity itself, or you might not be able to participate in the enforcement of it. And then lastly, the transformation. You know, how is this particular opportunity? You have to look at it as your business. Your business is your baby. How is this either going to put it in the spaces that you like, where we talked about the co-branding opportunities, but look at what is the transformation that you would expect out of this? And that sort of thoughtful approach, I would say, is something that we should give to collaborations, and not just say, well, this is good because, I can make up the 20%. That's awesome. But at the same time, what does this have to do with my overall purpose as a business, and the spaces that I'd like to be in?
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your valuable guidance on protecting business ideas and intellectual property, because your insight definitely they're essential for our entrepreneurs and business owners looking to collaborate securely.
Mm-hmm.
Yolanda, could you explain? I don't know if she's able to hear me, because I just she went off for a second. Let me go ahead and go to Michael until she comes back, and also, oh, there you are. Okay. I didn't
want to
think it's
serve Ms. Morris. Yes.
Okay, not a problem. Let me repeat. Could you explain the scope of liability for prime vendors? Additionally, what measures can they take to minimize risk and protect themselves from potential claims?
Well, I'll go back, read the rules.
Yes.
Read the rules. And that includes, one of the challenges that small businesses sometimes have is not having enough coverage, insurance coverage for what's required under the RFP. Sometimes you're just not big enough. Sometimes you don't have the wherewithal. Sometimes you have to partner, which is okay. Which is okay if the rules say you can. And we have had many joint venture partners, and so I'll do that. So what can you do to protect liability? If you have, number one, a joint venture partner, make sure that agreement is tight in terms of what you'll be responsible for and what they will be responsible for. In terms of liability beyond the coverage, make sure that you have all the niceties that you need. Sometimes people go bare. Lawyers sometimes go bare without malpractice insurance. That is not a good way to go. It's a cost of doing business.
Mm-hmm.
I share with my clients sometimes that are, have big visions about getting government contracts, and remind them that there's some cost of getting out of the kiddie pool. There are costs to getting out of the kiddie pool.
Yes.
So you have to weigh those costs and add them to the cost of doing business. I mean, sometimes you just can't protect yourself against every incident, whether it be something on the job, maybe be workers' comp or whatever. Sometimes you can't, because we have a very litigious society. For those of us who represent corporations, we tell you people get sued for everything. Corporations get sued for everything. But you can protect yourself by at least knowing the minimal coverage that you would need. And there's other things that you can do as a small business owner, as a business owner doing business with public entities. They're always having workshops and things like that to help you in the risk management area. You're going to have to arm yourself with information. It's not just enough to produce a good product these days. You have to produce a good product and be a smart business owner.
Yes.
And a smart business owner. And let me just say, as a point of personal privilege, I listened to Ms. Morris. You guys, they pay intellectual property lawyers make the most out of everybody. so, you got, so you got some amazing information that would have cost you a lot of money. So I hope that you took notes and that you wrote it. I learned a lot from her. So I wanted to say that lobbyists come a dime a dozen. Intellectual property lawyers, not so much, especially women of color. I want to say that. So kudos to the organizers for finding you.
Thank
I
you.
enjoyed you.
We are less than 2% out here.
Yep, I knew it. That's right. That's right. I'm right. I wrote your name down too for referrals because there aren't that many. So thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Yolanda, for those insights on managing liability and risk. Michael, when a company is awarded a contract, they are required to report payments made to their sub-vendors. Could you explain the process and importance of accurately reporting those payments in, excuse me, in the payment reporting system? Also, what common issues should vendors keep in mind to ensure full compliance? In addition to all the sub-vendors, what's required of them to also report payments or to justify they have received actual the payments?
Okay, thank you for the question, Jasmine.
You're
For
welcome.
EDDC, we use the Supplier Diversity Outreach Program Management System, also known as B2G, to monitor contract progress. For every solicitation, we enter those contracts into the system. And essentially what we require of our prime vendors is to report monthly how much they received from the school board of Broward County or from a revenue source associated with that contract. For example, you might have an aftercare provider who are paid directly by the parents, so they must report monthly how much they receive from the parents. They also insert their subcontractors into the system because every month, as I stated before, they must also report how much their subcontractors have received. And that allows us to track the progress of the prime vendors' goal, their progress toward their goal and towards that commitment. And we actually require them to do it by the 10th of the month, because what happens is if you go too long, first of all, when we're monitoring or receive notifications about your contract, it's going to say that you're behind progress. And what that means is you receive either a phone call or notice from me or Jasmine letting you know that effectively you're not meeting your commitment. And what that could potentially do is lead you to some type of liability towards the end when we do a full comprehensive compliance on your contract. And as far as accuracy, they're very important to report accurate because, as I stated before, we're monitoring that contract progress. And Jay said, for example, if you're not keeping accurate accounting records, what it is you can be repeating the same payments over and over and over again, and that can leave you short at the end of that contract, which means you aren't in compliance with that participation that you agreed to abide by at the beginning of your contract. And some of the issues as far as compliance, report the data on time, verify the data is correct. And I go through this weekly. Whoever's reporting your data, have their password, because I get calls weekly stating, hey, XYZ, they left the company and I don't know how to report, or either I'm 6 months behind and I can't report. So ensure that you have that password. And that's probably one of the biggest things that I would say as far as compliance, especially if you're dealing with school board of Broward County, have that password, because we do use our system to monitor your contract. And that's how we ensure compliance with our small business program. And that effectively gives them the opportunity and the funds to become bigger.
Well, thank you very much. Well, last question, because there are plenty of questions for the Q&A. So we're going to start that process early. I think it was very helpful. Kimra, could you provide a roadmap on the intellectual property life cycle from creation to protection and criminalization?
Okay. For trademarks, thank you for that. For trademarks, you're going to have the idea itself. You know, what's a good business name? What's a good business logo? What's a slogan? And then you have to go through the clearance process. That, I would say, that's the most important part of the trademark process, is the clearance, because I always say, why would you build, or you would not build a house on land you don't own? But people do this all the time. They focus on the marketing of this brand that where they haven't even cleared the land. But we're building. Now we got the website and we got partners and we have all this stuff. We have to focus on clearance of the name, because many times we focus on the fact that we're just in business. We're not thinking about legacy. And so you want to have something that's going to outlive you. And so it's not just you launched the business. It's not just that you had a couple of appearances. How long will this business be around? You don't want people coming after you to shut you down. So the first very important part of this process is the concept / clearance of the title for trademarks. For copyright, it's not just the concept or the idea, it's the fixation of it. How many times have you heard someone say, I thought of that, you know, I had that idea, but if it's not recorded somewhere, then you can't cash in on it. People have this misconception about a poor man's copyright. That's when you, the myth that you can mail a letter to yourself that has the song you wrote or whatever your idea is. You could have saved that stamp, because the copyright registration, the filing fee is $65. So what are we doing? and you can't even take anybody to court unless you have a registration. So that whole exercise doesn't make sense. So for copyright, it's the fixation of it. And of course, the registration. After you get the search cleared for both of these, and then you can register each. You're going to register the trademark with the USPTO, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and the copyright. As much as I would love to take your money, if you create content, you can go to copyright.gov and do it on your own. You really can. It's just following the instructions. And I say this especially to the teachers who are constantly creating content. The life cycle for the copyright is the concept and the fixation. For trademarks, we don't need fixation. We need the concept and the title search. After we have it protected, then it's a matter of, and we have the registration, then we have to maintain the registration, and we have to set up tools like Google Alerts or have an attorney or a monitoring system that's going to help you to be aware when somebody is infringing on your intellectual property, because if you don't catch it, it's considered implied consent. Or there's a legal argument called latches, where you didn't do anything about it and you lost it. So you have to use it and protect it. You have to maintain it. If you do rebrand, this happens a lot with my creative clients. They get bored with one version of the logo. If you have already protected that one version, you can't just go and revise it, because that protection you don't get rollover points. You have to now protect the rebrand. And I say this, I've represented some municipalities, school districts, whatever, and you do the rebranding, but you have to make sure to register the new thing so that you can enforce your rights. And I would just say, making sure as part of this process, making sure that your contact information is current. Too many people are using services like LegalZoom and Trademark Engine, and then after they finish the registration, your contact information isn't updated and you're not getting important information that can lead to abandonment.
Wow, thank you very much. Before we get started with the Q&A, you guys, pretty much what I hear is do your homework ahead of time. Insurance, spend time to learn behind the scenes nuggets, right? Because we are here, like EDDC, we are here to help small businesses. Oftentimes, it's when the need actually arises, that's when they actually need us, which is too late. You know, we have a forecasted contract list of what's about to expire, which they could capitalize, where they know on information such as what they buy, the frequency, even how much money they actually paid for that service. But oftentimes it's, I guess the small business don't have time enough to do that research, but it's a costly mistake. It really is costly mistake, but I get it. It's just a lot to do. You talk about in terms of the asset framework, intellectual property strategies, securing enforcement, transformation. You talk about a whole lot of things. So we definitely do have a whole lot of question and answers. So Tasha, you ready to go ahead and go over these questions and also address the folks that have their hands raised?
Yes, we just have a few questions. The first question is from Peter. Don't have an obsession. Asking this question to Yolanda. Can you share insights on how to effectively leverage local resources and partnerships to grow my business, particularly in the country?
So your question is about leveraging local contacts? Is that the question?
I'll repeat the question. Can you share insights on how to effectively leverage local resources and partnerships to grow my business, particularly in the context of Miami's economic landscape? And this is a question from Peter Horton.
Okay, so let me tell you.
Hard to hear.
Can you hear me? Yes, so I would say how to leverage the contacts. You know, you said Miami. And let me tell you, there's a stark contrast between doing business in Miami-Dade County and doing business in Broward County as a minority owner. And that's kind of touchy, but it is. I would say how you leverage your contacts. I start out with people I know. That is people who may be elected or have some influence, but I know. For example, my first opportunity in terms of political influence in Miami-Dade County when I moved back home was with someone who knew my parents. And they went to see the chair of the county commission, and she remembered that I had relocated to Miami, and she asked my boss, "Isn't that the firm where Ida and James's daughter is?" She didn't say my name. She just knew that that was the relationship. It told him a few things. One, that we had a long-standing relationship, that it was deep because she knew my parents. And she told him after that introduction, she said, "And next time bring her with you because she knows exactly how I think." And that was the chair of the county commission. So I think how to leverage those relationships is first to identify them. Are they people that would call you on return your call on a Sunday night? They may go to your church. They may go to school with your kids. You may just see them every day that you pick your kids up from school. Whatever that relationship is, then you start talking about, what do you do? And tell them what you do. And it seems really elementary, but that's really how relationships start to happen. I was talking to a client yesterday, and this will be the last example. And we were talking about contacts because a lot of times with my clients, I go through who do you know and who will return your call on a Sunday night? Who will recognize you in a grocery store? That's how you know whether or not people really know you. But anyway, so he was telling me, listen, he found out that the incoming speaker daughter plays with his daughter every day. He had no idea until he figured it out. And people don't have a problem with figuring out commonalities. I'm sorry, my light went out. Commonalities. That happens all the time. And that's how you start to build relationships. And those relationships will last for a lifetime. I can tell you that for me, a lot of the relationships that I have came from either my sorority, my church, or people I went to school with because I live down here. And then the last thing I would tell you, you may go to a new county where you've never done business before and still find relationships and be able to leverage those relationships. I can tell you, as a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, I lean on the shield so much I don't know how it's still standing, because you find commonalities. I use my Gator connection. If you're a Gator and you bleed orange and blue like me, that's about 30 minutes worth of conversation. So that's I hate to make it so simple, but it is. It's just that simple.
Thank you for that. I know there was some issues with hearing me. Am I clear enough now? Okay, thank you. The next question that we have, there's one more question here, is compliance and intellectual property require accurate records. I worked as a subcontractor for a company that had a federal contract and saw how often they needed to report. Can you recommend technology tools that would be compliant for a prime contract and executing government contract? And this is a question from Narissa Street.
Mhm. Hi, Narissa. I don't have any off the top, but I can say that some of the because I'm not sure specifically for this question, but when it comes to monitoring intellectual property, there are organizations that, such as Thomson Reuters, there's one called Markify. So you're looking for trademark monitoring. For copyright monitoring, some of them have started to include that as well. But yeah, there are a variety of vendors right now and I can't think of anyone that is more popular than most. And again, you can set up Google alerts, and this is public record for as far as if you want to search something, you can just go to the USPTO. If you know the owner's name, if you know the brand name, they have upgraded the trademark office search tools. Still nowhere near as good as a comprehensive search, but at least you can do a preliminary check for it. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Michael, can you also speak on that? Because I think that also crossed both of you guys' topics. So, Michael?
Yes, as far as a lot of federal contracts, I know they also use B2G outside of manually putting in the numbers, or I'm not sure of any technology tools. But I know a lot of federal governments do have big compliance departments that do handle the compliance when it comes to government contracts.
So this is Yolanda. I have something just, real simple. And once again, it's not that complicated. All of these governmental entities, the first thing they do when they see your name is Google you. That's the very first thing they do. They Google you. So if you have a website, which you should, there's no reason that nobody should not have a website today. Not high-tech technology, but just a website that tells who you are, how to get in contact with you, and some history about you and the history of the work that you performed so that they could check you out. Any articles, any Instagram, whatever. You need to have some record of yourself on either social media or at worst a website. And that sounds so basic. I cannot tell you how many times, at least at the state level, that I've gotten, a go-ahead for funding even for projects and whatever, not necessarily procurement. We're talking about procurement now, but for projects that could lead to procurement, and they find out about a company and they don't have an updated website. It doesn't make any sense.
And I want to piggyback off of that and just talk about the integrity in the content. AI is awesome for helping us to speed up with our work, but people can detect when something was written by AI. So please never copy and paste. A couple of issues with that. There was an article that I recently did for a magazine, and they gave us a Google spreadsheet so that they could see who turned in their article, and there was a link where you could access your article. And to the right, there were the editor's comments. And there were, the reason why people were selected was, this was actually, I can tell you, it was Authority magazine. Think about that, Authority magazine. And there were at least 4 people where the editor made in the comment, "Do not publish, written with ChatGPT." How embarrassing is that? If you are holding yourself out as an authority and this content, and so that, and of course we've had lawyers, Michael and Yolanda know, that have presented fake cases in court that were written by ChatGPT. So you can use it as a reference, but when we talk about compliance and integrity and intellectual property, the very last thing you want to be seen as is lazy, and certainly somebody with not doing due diligence and at least revising your findings through ChatGPT and other AI tools.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Goler, are you able to speak? I know you had your hand raised for some time. I guess she's not, she stepped out. Okay. Tomas? I'm just going down the list. Okay. Molly? I see Molly. Mormet?
I am here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, this is great. First of all, I want to say thank you all very much for having such a forum with just the quality of individuals that's on here tonight. My company is Executive Resource Solutions and Consultants. I do internal, external, and global expansions of businesses. I have been in private sector for many years, and now I'm coming into the public sector. I am very diligent with reading all of the requirements, so I have to do that with dealing with global governments for years. My question would be is that when I see bids and opportunities that are out there, I think this question would go to you, Michael. Seeing when those bids go out for the opportunities and it states that you have to have $1 million of insurance and so on and so forth, sometimes it does not necessarily state that it needs to be acquired 10 days later, which I do see in some municipalities. But sometimes it just states that you need to have it. Do you need to acquire that insurance prior to winning that bid? I have insurance. I always have insurance. So I have my errors and omissions. And so I just call my company and add on what I need to add on for whatever is when it's necessary. Is that something that is with the school board as well?
Yes, I know in order to actually meet the bid and there's an insurance requirement, before you submit that bid, you need to have that insurance.
Okay.
I also know we have Mrs. Jennifer Andreu and Ms. Denise Mincy Mills and also Jasmine. They may be able to chime in.
What you said is correct. The ITB and also the RFP, RFQ, they actually have the stipulation. It's just a matter of reading and meeting those obligations. Most of the times it's actually bid performance. Let me turn my camera on. Performance bid. And so where you have to put a percentage, normally it's about 5% of the total bid, but nonetheless, they do ask for that. It's just a matter of reading and meeting the requirements. Everything is always in the document. That's why it's, I believe Yolanda had mentioned to stay in tune with the commission meetings so you're able to find out before it's actually approved. They have to go to the commission, to the board meetings to make sure that it's approved by the board, and also get a copy of their historical similar bid, so that way you could see what they were asked, so you could be ready for that information. And that's why our next bond ready session on November 7th is so important, because a lot of people fail to meet those obligations. So I just want to say it's all part of that puzzle.
Yeah, I thank y'all very much. I just wanted to clarify that because, sometimes it doesn't state it specifically. I'm not speaking for the school board. I'm speaking, looking at some of the municipalities, and it says that it's required. And then some says it's required 10 days upon winning the bid. So I just wanted to make sure that I had clarity. So if it says that it's required, then I know that it's required when I submit the bid. And that's not an issue to do that. Because I'm sorry.
Unless otherwise. unless
Yeah.
otherwise noted, if it has that provision, 10 days later, I believe that would be fine as well.
Okay. Okay. So just make
Absolutely.
sure if it doesn't say days after, make sure I submit it with the bid.
Yes. But as Attorney Yolanda Cash Jackson says, read.
Read. That's right. I don't have a problem with that. Thank you all for the answer.
You're welcome. We do have Georgette also has her hand raised.
Yes, hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Hi. So my question is also kind of sort of related to bidding. And yes, the attorney said to read the fine print. Make sure we read everything. But my question is, my company is an ice cream company, and of course, I've recently attended a meeting with Miami-Dade County Public School in order to become part of the vendor, or either part of to become a vendor with them, or to even fall into their menu for food wise. Now I know with the whole bidding, you have to make sure that you follow the nutritious guidelines for snacks, because we fall under snacks. Now let's say that I read all the fine print and I've done my label with the ice cream and I follow, all the intricate details that the food and nutritious guidelines fall under, but I'm going against so many other companies. What else would I need to actually do to make sure that eventually I come on top? Is there another cheat sheet?
Who can actually answer, Georgette? Kimra, are you able to assist in answering?
I don't have that experience, no, unfortunately.
Okay, we're probably going to have to. Oh, yes, Michael?
I would definitely contact the procurement department just to review what did the winning bidder do or proposer do or have that you didn't have. I would look at the historical data as Jasmine referenced earlier, just to see what you can do better. Or maybe your price was too high. Pay attention to the market. So, I would definitely go to your procurement agent or department and just review your bid versus what the actual proposer's winning bid was.
Got it.
And in addition to what Michael said, also you might need to really look at subcontracting with the larger vendors because of the size of our district. And when we're making certain purchases, and you need to be aware of that as well, we're buying in large volume. So it's sometimes a little more challenging for a small business, but you can absolutely subcontract with a huge firm like US Foods or Cisco or one of the bigger players. And again, like Michael mentioned earlier, we have goals and APIs to help you do that.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's our dearest executive director, and Jennifer Andreu. Thank you for that. All right. Gola, I know right now time check is 7:56. I don't know if you guys are okay to take one more question for Gola, because she was the first one, but we won't be able to take any more. Are you guys okay with that? You guys are good with that? Okay. Yeah. Gola, are you able to go ahead and speak and ask your question?
I asked my question with Miss Morris earlier, but okay. I do want to ask, what is the percentage? And I know that EDDC is working with minority businesses, but what is the success rate of someone who is a minority business owner and trying to do business with Broward schools? What's the success rate? Because I'm noticing just with these last few little meetings that we've held, I'm going to say this, but it's not to be discouraging to anyone else, but it's discouraging due to the fact that I don't seem to be getting information, or it doesn't seem as if there's a valuable success rate with doing business with Broward schools. As you say, if I'm small, I need to subcontract with a larger company. But why? Why would I have to do that? Why should I have to do that? So my question is, though, what is the success rate, or the percentage of success rate with doing business, being a Black or minority business, and small business at that?
Well, Michael, would you like to take the
Jasmine,
first?
oh,
Because I do
I
have, I can add, I can supplement, depending on if you would like to take the lead on this and responding.
believe I just heard Ms. Andreu, so I'll defer to Ms. Andreu.
Okay.
so I'm sure all of our team can answer that. And it's somewhere in, I don't have the exact date in front of me. Jasmine may have it in front of her, but it's somewhere in the 40s in terms of percentages. So we actually do work very closely and have lots of success stories and businesses that do well and make a lot of money that work with the school district. I mentioned subcontracting in that space. And so I believe, it was touched upon earlier, you have to know the market and the space you're in. So with food, that is huge because we're supplying food almost 365 days a year, believe it or not, and 2 and 3 meals a day. So that's difficult for a small business to supply on that level, to scale up to that level. It's not impossible, but it's challenging. So that's why I mentioned subcontracting. And again, that starts the relationships that Yolanda Cash Jackson mentioned earlier. That's just a first step to get into the door and build those relationships until you can grow and become the prime, whether it's in construction or food or whatever, area of goods or services that you offer. But it is in the 40s. I just want you to know that. So don't be discouraged. As Michael said, sharpen your pencil and find out all of the tools that are needed for you to achieve success.
Yes,
So can I just
absolutely.
add? Can I add just one part? Because what I do a lot is business development. You have to build the relationships. I can tell you that one of the biggest clients that I got was by a referral of somebody where I just had played a very small part in a contract that we had worked on together. And from that, they referred me to something that it turned out to be probably one of the biggest contracts that I have worked on. So I really encourage you, do you need them? No, but you need the relationships. We are in a relationship business when you are dealing with the public and dealing in the public sector. So I encourage you strongly to consider partnering in some municipalities in Broward. If I can be real candid now, we have some municipalities in Broward that are all Black commissioners that really would like to help minority vendors. And sometimes it's people that have done business in that city long before they, became an all Black city. And so, some commissioners will say, we want to have some diversity. Now, the governor may not want DEI, but we do. And so I really encourage you to build those relationships. And you may have a cultural competency that is needed on a job. And so I really wanted to echo that, because a dollar is a dollar, last time I checked.
Yes, for sure. Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and stop for right now. I thank you very much for, the panel. This was wonderful. Everyone is looking forward to connect with each one and every single one of you guys to get more information, and hopefully it will be for business related, so that way you guys can get more business to help them, right? To help them scale up and achieve what they're destined to achieve, for sure. So let me go ahead and go back to my slides because I wanted to at least acknowledge the certificate and so on. Hold on one second, please. Let's see. Okay. All right. So right now, okay. So definitely I wanted to say thank you to our panelists for sharing your expertise and insight with us today. Your guidance in navigating complex legal and compliance topics from bid protests and construction liens to intellectual property, protection and vendor obligations has been invaluable. We are grateful for your time and contribution in helping our attendees strengthen their business strategies and understanding. On behalf of the Economic Development Department, I express my sincere gratitude. Each of you guys, because there's not much we could do. We would love to obviously physically give you, a thank you, the certificate of appreciation, but as you know, we have to do an electronic version with a hard copy to follow. But let's start with Attorney Yolanda Cash Jackson. I would like to say thank you to you for a job well done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it, and invite me back.
Absolutely. And the next is Attorney Michael Scott. Thank you so much, Scott, for being here.
Thank you, Jasmine, for having me.
You're welcome. And then our final panel is Kimra Major Morris. You're a hit tonight. You're a rare find, as Yolanda said. So it seemed like you're hot. So thank you so much for being rare, and thank you for what you do. And all the information that you guys provided assisted all of us, not just the attendees, but staff as well, because it's nice to learn new things, right? It's all about learning, continuous learning. So I want to say thank you so much. On behalf of Broward County Public Schools and the Economic Development Department leadership and team, we want to take the opportunity to also publicly thank our signature sponsors for their support of the Business Excellence Program. Without them, this program would not be possible. So special recognitions to Broward County government, the city of Miramar, the city of Pompano Beach, and the city of Sunrise, and city of, excuse me, Tamarack. So we also have our co-sponsors. We also thank each one for being there here today and participating in the call. And we hope you'll be able to take something from tonight and apply it in your entrepreneurship journey and successful outcome for sure. So we have right now, we're featuring our next event, which is going to be held next Thursday on November 7th for the Bond Boost. It elevates your business to bond ready. As you can see, bonding is in front of all procurement, especially with public agencies. So it's very important that you understand all of the differences between performance bond, bid bonds, subguard, OSIP, which is owner's control, insurance. It's very to understand the entire dynamics, because without it, we don't want you to learn it too late. So this is very important. And so that's going to be at the Plantation High School in the auditorium. So check-in starts at 4:45. And then we also have our next one, which is 11:14. And just like Gallo was speaking and other attendees, we do have a dedicated session for non-competitive opportunities under $50,000. And as for Broward schools concerned, as far as the overall dollars that are expended in that area, that's in the millions. I'm talking about north of 100 million. So there's plenty of opportunities there to support our 250 plus schools and or 14,000 teachers and so on. So we have a lot of money to spend. So it's the ability to find your space wherever that is, right? So just like Miss Injury said, it could be a subcontracting, but the whole idea of scaling up is to become a prime. And also we literally put the API, like Michael was talking about, we debundles into smaller projects. So things that are less than $250,000, maybe that's doable for you. That's your space. So there are different ways. You just have to speak with us and find your niche so you can scale up. So I just want to put it out there. So don't give up on us yet. So we want to make sure that you understand that. So on 11/21, we do have 3 sessions, and this one's going to be extremely significant. And it's also our last course before graduation on December 5th. So this will be a special event to honor your sacrifice and your commitment in attending the Business Excellence. So thank you again, everyone. A special shout out to our speakers for their insightful contribution. Your expertise is truly great. And as we head out the last hour of Halloween, remember there might be a little more candy to enjoy. So don't let those sweet opportunities pass by. So we look forward to seeing you at the next event in Plantation High School Auditorium. Be safe and good night. Thank you.